AutoCAD, working with maps. Thanks for joining us. It's good to see I can see some usual faces there, some regulars, so thank you and welcome back, and some new people, which is great. So for those of you that are new to this, my name's Ian Robinson. I'm the infrastructure consultant here at Graitec. I'm based here in the UK, helping customers get the most out of their infrastructure design and BIM related software. So this includes things like training, consultancy in the main really, bit of support, but also workshops and webinars and blogs and customer presentations, a little bit of social media, generally evangelizing the technology. So my main focus is Civil 3D, Map 3D with GIS being my background, InfoWorks, Recap for point clouds, Navisworks for federated models, bit of clash detection, and also BIM 360, which will be my next webinar. There's 4 pillars to what we do here at Graitec. We create, simulate, fabricate and manage. So we work with the Autodesk portfolio and our own PowerPack enhancements to aid the creation of construction and manufacturing deliverables. We then combine this with the use of our simulation products to verify those deliverables, and this enables us to drive them into the fabrication process, and then we manage them deliverables also. And that with our CDE products, which they link to internal and external platforms as well. So this is firmly on the create phase of the project, using Map 3D, InfoWorks and Civil 3D. So this is the latest in a large round of webinars that I've been producing over the last few months. We're going to touch a little bit on InfoWorks today, and if you've never seen InfoWorks before, or if you call yourself a novice user, go and have a look on our on-demand area for the ones that you've missed. The last one in this round will be on Monday, I believe. Yes, Monday, collaboration with Civil 3D using BIM 360. This presentation is downloadable. If you go to the handouts area, there is a download. There's 2 downloads in there, one of them being this presentation, and all these links are clickable, so they will take you straight there, and I'll cover the other one later on. So here's the link to the on-demand page. As I say, you can download the presentation, and whilst you're on our website, I highly encourage you to subscribe to our blogs as well. There's a subscribe button in the top there. It's a little bit subtle, but it's there. Okay, so let's just get a bit of a quick poll on who's here and what's what. Okay, they are different. If you have joined me before, these are it's a different poll. The first one is actually the same or very similar. Let's launch that one. Okay, so do you have AutoCAD, AutoCAD Map 3D, AutoCAD Civil 3D, InfoWorks, or the AEC collection? Now, if you have the AEC collection, you don't have to click any of the others. But if you only have AutoCAD, click the AutoCAD. If you only have Map 3D, click Map. And if you only have Civil 3D or InfoWorks, click them respectively. There we are. Most of you are going for the AEC collection. And I will close that in a second. Most of you have voted. A couple not, but we'll close it now. And I'll share that with you. This is great to see. There's lots of people using the AEC collection. And I'm more than delighted to see AutoCAD users here. This is what this is aimed at, people who use AutoCAD as well. So it's really important that when you download your AutoCAD, download the correct version for the industry you do. And if you're working with mapping data, the correct version is AutoCAD Map 3D. And you'll see that in a minute. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's hide that and go to the next one. Launch that. Do you use geospatial data in your project? Yes or no? Okay, if you're unsure what geospatial data actually is, because it's quite a big subject, then the answer is probably put no. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll go, oh, actually I do use it, because I'll guarantee you almost every one of you uses geospatial data, even if it's geospatial data you create. And at the end of this, you'll say, oh yeah, I do actually. Okay, I'll close the vote in a minute. Most of you have voted. Oh, it's neck and neck, guys, neck and neck. And I'll close the vote now. And the yeses have it, only just though. So half of you are using geospatial data and half of you aren't. Okay, right, next question. Do you have a GIS department within your organisation? So that's a geographical information department in there. So the answer is, I just need to make my screen a bit bigger so I can actually read what I wrote. Hang on. There we go, that's better. Yes, and you use Esri. Yes, but you use other software or you don't know which software you use. No, you don't have any GIS department or you've no idea. So just tick on the ones you want. Okay, most of you have voted, so I will close the poll in a second. Excellent, good result there. I'll share that with you. So 27% of you are using Esri software, which is brilliant. So there's some nice tools in here that you can play with on the Esri ones. I wasn't planning on touching the Esri side of things, but I'll kind of, now I've seen that, I might just show a couple of bits. We'll see how we do for time. And some of you have, but you're unsure, or you don't, or you use other software, and the majority don't, and some of you don't know. Okay, excellent. Right. Again, hopefully I'll be able to help with that one. Just two more questions now. Do you buy mapping data? So do you go out and buy maps of any description? Not paper maps, I'm talking digital maps. Things that you're going to put into your AutoCAD, whether it be a DWG. Okay. And we're nearly there. A couple more to vote. And the answers are in, so I will close the poll in a second and share that with you. So the majority is yes, you go out and you buy your mapping data, so that's great to see. A lot of you don't, so hopefully you're here to see what you can do with the mapping data before you go and spend it. And 18% of you already own it, so that's brilliant. So again, I'll be able to help with that as well. Okay, let's hide that. And then the final question. Do you use DWG maps? i.e., do you have a folder on your server that's got a load of maps in it and you just use them? Or, yeah, you do use DWG maps, but usually nick them out of other drawings, or you get it from another, one of your clients maybe, or the answer be no. Okay, and most of you have voted now. Now that is an interesting result, that, and not what I expected. And you've all voted, all but one, so I'll close that now and share that with you. Okay, so yeah, most of you just get the data from someone and copy it into your files. Okay, usually I'm guessing in a DWG format. Some of you are not, and the quarter of you have a whole tile, a whole folder full of DWGs. Most of you, if you've got a folder on your server that's full of DWGs, the chances are, this isn't always the case, but most of the cases when I go out and see people, the chances are these are the people who've got maybe a GIS department, or they've got somebody who looks after the GI data. They buy the Ordnance Survey data. They then buy another piece of software which takes the Ordnance Survey data, chops it up into little squares, creates DWGs from it, and then they stick it on a server and they say, there you go, engineers, enjoy. And then they leave it for like 2 or 3 years. Now, I've been on site doing flood alleviation and coastal erosion with a customer, and they were using 7-year-old mapping data. When I actually got down to the crux of it, nobody had updated them tiles for 7 years. Now, imagine doing coastal erosion on 7-year-old maps. It's crazy. So just bear that in mind, and then hopefully you'll be able to see that there is another way to work. Even if you've just got plain AutoCAD and you just download the correct software. Excellent, thanks for that everybody, that's much appreciated. Let's carry on. The agenda is quite straightforward today. What is geospatial data? I think it makes sense to talk about that. What data can I use and how do I use it? Nice and simple. And the 3 products I'm going to use, bit of a spoiler alert here, are AutoCAD, Map, Civil and InfoWorks. So let's start with what is geospatial data. It's it would be daft me not telling you what geospatial data is, because I know that some of you know what it is and you work with geospatial data, but I'm also aware some of you have kind of, oh, it's mapping, isn't it? Is that all it is? It's not. It's a lot more than that. I'm sure, for example, you're familiar with organized data, such as databases like Access, and smaller databases such as Excel, or even data files like CSV files. You've all come across an Excel spreadsheet in your time, haven't you? Well, geospatial files are exactly the same, but they have information about their place in the world. This could be anything from a simple X and Y coordinate. Let's just go and dig into that last page and have a look at that CSV file. There's an X and there's a Y coordinate. But it can go all the way through to complex 3D geometry with lots of attributions. And the attributions are one of the most important aspects of this. So this is your digital world. Now this world is on which you view, analyze, plan, and build stuff. And it does not make sense to build your digital designs in isolation. You need to do all of your work with constraints. For example, you might start your planning process with a map of the area. You need to mitigate against things like flood events or avoid special areas of scientific interest, for example. You don't want to repeat work that's already been done by someone. And in line with the BIM methodology, you want to make sure that the data you consume and the data you create is available throughout the life cycle of the project. And this is where geospatial data comes in. So which is the best software to consume, analyze, and manage spatial data? Now I'm mentioning these because these will be terms that most of you will have heard and probably not really understood what they mean, really, okay? So, top of the tree, really, Esri. You may have heard of terms like ArcView or ArcGIS. These are Esri platforms. The file format, shape format, or .shp, that's an Esri format. So is a personal geodatabase, which is actually a cheat. It's a Microsoft database specified by Esri. And a file geodatabases. Interestingly, file geodatabases can take up to it's a file that can take up to 1 terabyte of data. So it's quite interesting. Other ones you may have come across are things like MapInfo. They're actually Pitney Bowes who make franking machines. Don't ask me why they do mapping as well, but they do. You'll come across like .tab files or things called MIFMID files. You'll see them. Another big one throughout the world is CAD Corp. Now these guys, although they do have their own format, they advocate open standards, so they can consume all sorts of formats. Well, almost all of them really. Certainly the ones you'll all come across. Now they work closely with the Ordnance Survey in the UK, and they also work with the OGC, which is the Open Geospatial Consortium, and they support international interoperability standards for geospatial systems. And there's also free ones out there as well, the best of which is probably QGIS. They're part of the OSGeo open source project. And then, of course, we can consume it with our favourite Autodesk software as well. They've got their own file format as well for geospatial data. You may have come across it. It's called an SDF file, which stands for Spatial Data File. So which Autodesk products do you need for this? I've kind of given a bit of a spoiler on that. First of all, if you're an AutoCAD user, just download the correct version of AutoCAD. Download AutoCAD Map 3D, and you'll see that in a minute. It's just, to be honest, it's just AutoCAD with bells and whistles on it. That's all it is. The next one is Civil 3D. Civil 3D, for all you civil users, has got AutoCAD Map 3D built into it. I'll show you how to access that. And InfoWorks. InfoWorks, at its heart, is actually a geospatial database. That's what it really is. All of these can interact with your digital world, whether that be Esri shape files or MapInfo files or whatever. Now, it would be remiss of me to talk about data without talking a little bit on risk. Spatial data and non-spatial data have the same risks involved when it comes to security. File sharing of any type has its own risks, whether it be local or cloud storage. There's no real difference between the two. Rarely will you come across a spatial data file with national secrets in it, although I have come across one recently. It is rare though. In fact, most of the data we're going to be handling is in the public domain. So that isn't the risk I'm talking about. The biggest risk for geospatial data is understanding what the data is actually telling you. Now, we can reduce a lot of the problems just by understanding that information. You need to understand where it comes from and what the data is reporting. So spend a little bit of time to understand what the data is telling you. When was it collected, for example? Is the information relative to you? It sounds crazy, but if you want to know how an area floods, should you be looking at flood zone 3, flood zone 2, product 4, product 5? Maybe you're looking at 1 in 30, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000-year events. Should you also be looking at water depth, or what about water speed? What does that mean? It really is a minefield, but all the information is out there. You must read it. Now, my rule for never showing data I don't understand is, if you can't write a paragraph on what the data is telling you, where you got it from, when it was collected, and by who, you've really got to question whether you should be showing it. Additionally, for things like flood data, you need to understand what the data is telling you. So what is a 1 in 1,000-year event, for example? If you think that means you get one flood event every 1,000 years, and we had one in 2015, so we're good to go for another 995 years, then you should go and learn what it actually means. It's really important. The information is there. Please go and read it. I will be on these downloads here. There are links to the sites which will teach you that sort of thing as well. So when you look at the 1,000-year flood event, there's a link to the web page, and it'll tell you what it all means as well, which is really useful. So what data is out there? Well, it all depends on who you are, really. If you are a local or central government or fire, police, basically blue light, ambulance, you get yours through what's called the PSGA. Now, I'm aiming this at the UK market at this stage, but every country has their own versions of this. Most countries have their own versions of this. The PSGA is the Public Sector Geospatial Agreement. This replaces the PSMA. You may have come across PSMA, the Public Sector Mapping Agreement. It replaced it only in April this year, so it's brand new in England and Wales. For Scotland, you're still on the OSMA, the One Scotland Mapping Agreement, so you can go and visit them. Remember, this is a downloadable presentation. You can click on them links and go and find out what they all mean. For Northern Ireland, you visit the Ordnance Survey Northern Ireland, or the Land and Property Services, LPS. I couldn't find that they have a public sector. I think they do have some sort of public sector agreement. And for Ireland, you visit the OSI and their National Mapping National Mapping Agreement. If you work in these organisations and you have a dedicated department, usually a GIS or Geographical Information Systems department, they control and manage that data. Speak to them. If you can't find them, speak to me, I'll find them for you. If you're a contractor working on behalf of any of the above, then under the old PSMA, you could get a contractor licence to use their data without charge. Under the terms of the licence, it was free of charge. Now, it remains to be seen what happens with the new one, the PSGA, but the Geospatial Commission, which is part of the Cabinet Office in the government, they've stated that there will be a greater freedom to share data. So unless you're already in possession of this agreement, we'll have to see what transpires. Having said that, this morning for a client, I was able to get hold of some TOID data and some extra data that was freely available that wasn't freely available in March. So it does look like they're coming good on their promise there, making it more accessible, which is great. For education, for contractors, carry on with them. For large infrastructure organisations, so if you're energy, water, communications, you usually have a GIS department again, or a GI department. You've usually got the data, you usually buy it direct from the OS and what have you. So if you are working in them, go and find them people. If you can't find them, come and see me. For contractors of private organisations, you can purchase from OS partners. Okay, you can buy from any of these resellers. There's loads of them. That's not an extensive list. I'm not affiliated to any. Graitec's not affiliated to any. Basically, just pick one that you like and stick with them. They can provide many data sets up to the largest scale mapping, and you may have come across the term master map. Oh, hang on, that's done something weird. Come on, back you go. There we are, master map. That provides the highest level of detail for imagery, for features, networks, topography, and landform, all with the attributions that you would expect. So a line is not just a line, it's a thing. The mapping data will tell you if it's a building or a park or a wall. It allows you to select, style, and exclude data based on that attribution, rather than you going looking for them in the DWG and finding the layers when there's 300 layers, turning the layers on and off, only to find that the user before you put everything on the same layer, and it's a right nightmare. So it's a lot better to work with the original data. Also, it'll be up to date as well. Just to give you an idea, if you are a private company, a site that size there will cost you less than £100 with the highest quality mapping data. So the sort of stuff I'm going to be showing you today as well. So if you kind of put that into your bidding process, you can get an awful lot of data, really, for not a lot of money. Right, education. So the education sector, you're well looked after by Adena. Digimap is an online mapping and data delivery service, and you can download from them as well. It's available by subscription to the UK higher and further education establishments. There's also a new, well, it's not new now, it arrived later, thing called Digimap for the schools as well. These are guys based in Edinburgh. They do a brilliant job. They've also done some great videos on how to work with their data in Autodesk software as well. So if you're part of that education sector, this is all relevant to you as well, and you can get hold of the data there. If you're in a estates department, though, that's basically commercial. So you go back to the private organisations. That's where you're going to get your data from. Okay, you're going to buy it basically. So for private companies, it's the same as contractors. You buy your data, but for everyone, there's a load of free data sources. So that's the interesting bit, this free stuff. So let's just talk about the free stuff. First things first, and I'll show you this today. If you've used InfoWorks, you'll have seen Model Builder. So this supplies Bing Maps aerial imagery. It's the exact same data you see in your AutoCAD products. So you know the Bing Maps that you put in AutoCAD or AutoCAD Map or Civil 3D. It's the exact same product from the same source. Buildings, roads, and coverage areas, they come from OpenStreetMap. Again, there's a link to OpenStreetMap in that document that you can download. That's a free-to-use crowdsourced data set. The landform, though, that comes from two sources, depending on where you are, how far north you are. Basically, in the majority of Great Britain and actually the central belt of the planet, it's all been sourced from the USGS. It's the SRTMGL1 product. That was gathered by the Space Shuttle Endeavour back in the year 2000. So pretty old data. But for kind of, I've got nothing, let's start with something, it's not a bad start. Yes, okay. So with the new partnership between Esri and Autodesk, there's some sources available on the ArcGIS server, but I'm not going to advocate this. Be careful here. So the freely published data on the ArcGIS server, so this is your Esri users, all you guys using Esri, the freely published data, there's no guarantee or quality control. There's no documentation. Well, there's limited if there is any at all. Esri UK have published some good data on there, but you'll find loads from students and test data sets and people just messing about. You're best going direct to source on that. Only use the Esri thing if you've got an Esri ArcGIS server and your data's managed in there. Then you've got your quality control on there. But for the free stuff, maybe not. OpenStreetMap, that's that crowdsourced stuff that I was talking about. This is the best place to go for free data. It's the OS Open Data Portal. This changed literally a few days ago. So it's now the Ordnance Survey Data Hub. And it does mean that I haven't had time to update that document. So if anybody has, hang on a minute, sorry, we've just got a question. Apologies. Pigeon stuck behind fireplace. Okay, I presume you've been distracted by that. All right, David, hopefully you'll see you in a bit. Right, yeah, where are we? Yeah, it's just been changed. So if you do need access to that, just do a search for Ordnance Survey Data Hub. They've basically combined everything into one place, and there's some data sets to download there. Again, if you can't find it, just let me know. As I say, the swine's changed it before I finish this presentation. But that is the best place. It's where the data is kept up to date, and actually the source of this data is their high resolution stuff. And then there's the open government data portals. Now that deserves a little bit more attention, and I'll show you a couple of links on that. And again, these links are in that document. So this is the Inspire directive. You'll hear people talk about Inspire data and all that business. So Inspire stands for Infrastructure for Spatial Information in Europe, and it's an EU directive that was designed to have a Europe-wide shared data set that feeds into EU environmental policies. God knows what happens when we properly leave. Hopefully we'll ignore that and we'll carry on. For us, this means that we all have access to all this important data that's fundamental. It's a fundamental requirement of any construction project. Each member state has their own portal, access to data. So I know not all of you are in the UK, but if you're in any of the member states, and this includes the EFTA members and the 3 non-members as well, that's North Macedonia, Serbia and Turkey. You just select your country and you can get a link to your government website. There's even a little map there as well where you can just click on it as well. So I suppose that's pretty apt considering the subject matter. The UK is a little bit unique though, because we're multiple nations. We're not just one nation. So this here, for example, is the One Scotland spatial portal. So they've got their own place. And again, the LPS and the OSNI, you've seen where further on, earlier on in this presentation, where you can get links to them as well. But it's not just a European principle. So if you're in the United States, for example, they've got their own data.gov as well. So you can download free government data from there as well. This is the UK one, data.gov.uk, and you can find loads of data in there. So for example, if you do a search for geospatial data catalogue, you'll get all this. You'll get links to the OS, the Land Registry, Coal Authority, Hydrographic Office, British Geological Survey, and I'll look at a couple of them in very shortly. And then lastly, before we just get into the products, I'm just going to see what time it is. Oh, we're going to have to be quick. Before I show you the actual products and what have you, here's a useful guide, and again, this is in the download. It's a useful guide to the level of detail to various products. These are just OS products. So on the left are highly detailed products, on the right, low detailed products. The top 2 are free data sets, and the bottom are paid for data sets. And as you would expect, the free ones have less detail and less attribution, and the paid for ones have more detail and more attributions. And the attributions are the important bit, the data that it comes with. Cool. Okay, right. So let's crack on and go and have a look at the products. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. No, I'm not. I'm in the right place. I meant to start here. Okay. So the first things first, we were just talking about data and where you can get data from, and there's data.gov.uk, etc. There is also environment.data.gov.uk. And within there, you can get to certain areas where you can get things like flood zone data. And again, this link is on that download there. And this is a WMS, or there's a web feature service, that stands for web mapping service. I'll show you one of them in a minute. For land data, for survey data, so this is your LiDAR data. There's this place here. Again, it's part of DEFRA, environment.data.gov.uk. The link's on the download. And this allows me to go and download any of the LiDAR data, really useful for working with InfoWorks and Civil 3D. Really good LiDAR data. It's a bit big for Civil, but it's good to go via InfoWorks into Civil. That works quite well. But we'll have a look at that. And you can go anywhere in the country. The place we're working today is Exeter. Those of you that know me will know that a lot of the jobs are in here because there's a flood alleviation scheme here. And all you do is you just go and pick your site, double click, oh my God, click, double click, and say get available tiles. They have updated the tiles recently, so the tiles that I've been getting up until last month were all in a format called an ASCII grid format, which is a .asc, but they've just updated the server to now use .geotiff files, which are better actually. But basically, you've got two file formats here. You've got DSM and DTM. If you've never used these before, DSM stands for Digital Surface Model, and that has all the surface features on it. So it'll have, the surface will go over houses, parked cars, over trees, everything. Good for doing large scale, well, small scale, so large maps of line of sight, for example. And then DTM has all them stripped off, so it's just the ground model. And that's normally what you would use. There's occasions for using DSM, but you'd normally use DTM. You can see when it was collected in 2019, and you can see you've got different resolutions in here. So let's think about what that means. If you were to go and get the free data from the Ordnance Survey, yes, it's up to date, yes, it's good quality data, but the free land data is on a 50-metre grid. So it's quite large scale. It's good for mapping out counties and countries, not so good for mapping out something this small, because you'll only have like 20 dots along here and 20 down there. So it's not great for that. 1 metre is a lot better. Now, the Ordnance Survey do produce a countrywide data set in their Master Map series, so it's a paid-for data set, and that's at 5-metre grid. And this product was actually derived when the EA many years ago went back to the OS and said, we need high quality data, and then they all got together and produced these data sets. And they've been developing ever since. And all you do is you just click on that and download the data. It just says, where do you want to save it? And you just click save. Okay, so that's quite useful. So I've done that. And we're going to have a look at it in here. But first of all, this is Model Builder in InfoWorks. So if you've used InfoWorks before, you'll recognize this. For those of you that haven't used InfoWorks before, go onto the on-demand portal on our website. The link's on the download, and just have a look at the InfoWorks series that I've just run. It'll tell you everything you need to know. So all you do in here, you can just go in and say, right, I'm working in Exeter. I'll put the aerial imagery on so I can see it a bit better. And that's my site, okay? And I can take this whole area, or draw a square, or draw a polygon, like so. Or I can import a shapefile. So I can go and find a shapefile and it will take me to the site, okay? Then you just give it a name and click Create Model. And in about 5 minutes' time, you will get an email like this. I've just received one. There you go, saying your model is ready for you to download. So I've done that, and this is it here. You click on that and it downloads, and this is what you get. Okay. So remember where this data is coming from. You've got the buildings from OpenStreetMap, the roads from OpenStreetMap, the aerial imagery from Bing, and the landform is coming from this 2000 data set, so a 20-year-old data set. It's actually done at a resolution of 1 arc-second, and if you get your calculator out, 1 arc-second is about 30 meters. So it's not bad resolution, but it isn't great, is it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the EA data that we've downloaded. So let me just delete all of this stuff. Let me create a new thing in here, and I'll just put in, what's the date today? 15th, is it? I can't remember. Something like that. I'm going to delete all this other stuff in here. So I'll delete the buildings, delete the land use, leave the imagery, get rid of the railways, and just leave that in. So let's get rid of them. And I'll just turn off the imagery so you can see the kind of quality of the terrain. There you go. So it's quite basic land in there. Okay, let's get that EA data up. So let me just go and get the EA data. I'll need to go to the Environment Agency, EA. Airbus was the original project, DTM, it was SX, 1 meter, and this area is 9192. There it is. Okay, and it comes as a .asc or a geotiff. We can just drag it in. So in here, you just tell it that you're on the British National Grid. I'll come to coordinates in a minute. And on the raster, you can clip it to the model extent if you need to. So if it's a really big file and you've just got a small model, you can clip it. And you can also put in null data values. I won't go into too much detail, but basically an ASCII grid, a GeoTIFF file, all of these are raster files, okay, like an image file. And they're exactly the same as an image file. If you imagine an image as a rectangle, and on that image, it's got lots of pixels, and each pixel has 3 numbers on it, RGB, red, green, blue colour. This is exactly the same as that, except that pixel has X, Y, Z on it. So it has to be a rectangle. And if it wasn't, if there was an area where the EA had not mapped, they would leave a hole in the rectangle, but it means they have to put a value in there, a null data value. And that null data value is -9999. So if there are any holes, it will leave a hole. So you click close and refresh. It will tell us that it's put the surface in an uncategorized surface. So I will just drag it into the ground surface, turn it on, hit OK, and you'll see I'll get a much better quality surface. There it is. So that gives you really high quality surface information. Oh, I should have put my notes up, shouldn't I? Let me just spin them over here, put some notes up there. Not that I read them. Okay, now, next thing is you can go to the website and you can also download flood data. Remember I showed you the flood data? The link is on the download. So I've done that. So let's go here. This is the flood data. Now this is a massive data set. It's in an Esri shape file format. That's what they supply it as. And it is 670 megabytes big. It's all of England and Wales flood zone 3. And all I want is it for this area here. Well, there's lots we can do, and I'm going to show you how to handle this in AutoCAD in a minute, because you can still handle that. Even though it's 670 megabytes, you can handle it in AutoCAD. I'm going to drag it in, and we're going to have a look at the flood data. Again, you just tell it's on the British National... Oh, you tell it what type of thing it is. I'll use it as a coverage area. So it's just going to cover the land. And we'll style it. We'll make it blue. Let's scare people. If you want it slightly transparent, put an alpha channel on it, maybe 155, something like that. Geolocation, British National Grid, source, you want to drape it, and you must clip it. Otherwise, it's all of England and Wales. We'll be all going to make a cup of tea while it's imported. Won't take long, he says. There we are. And there's your flood data. That looks very effective if you turn the aerial imagery on. So very quick constraint information in here. All of this can be done in AutoCAD, so that's the next time. I'm going to do the same thing in AutoCAD in a minute. Imagery, turn it off. And, oh, actually, I'll turn the flood data off as well now. Flood data, there it is. Okay, and the next thing is, if you've got master map data, you can work with that as well. So let's go and get the master map data. What are we on? On survey, don't we? So OS, and we'll bring in Exeter samples, and I've got one with building heights on it because master map has building heights. So let's bring the master map in. So let's pick the right data set. This one here. So this is just the mapping data. So I can bring that in. Tell it that they're coverage areas. Make sure that you put it on the British National Grid. Make sure you drape it and click to the model extent because it's a much bigger tile, this. But the other thing we can do is we can also look at the data fields. I'm going to explain them in a minute. So if I go in, I can say, describe each polygon using the data field in the master map. So if I say your descriptive group, and I'm also going to add make in the table as well. Now this will become clearer later. I've kind of done it backwards on purpose because I wanted to show you InfraWorks first, AutoCAD second. So hang fire with this, it will become very clear in a second. and I'm going to say make. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to tell me what the land is. Is it a building? Is it a bit of road? Is it a general surface? And it's going to tell me if it's man-made or natural, which is quite useful. We'll hit close and refresh. And that's brought it in. You can see if I hover over, I've got all these materials on everything. There's some buildings down here. Can you see them? Okay. And if I look at one of them, you'll see in the properties that it's a building. Obviously, a building's man-made. I don't think the OS map badger sets. Okay, so what we can then do is you can create style palettes for your master map, and you can create style rules for your master map, which I've done. Again, if you don't know how to do that and you want to learn, go and see my other webinars. That's interesting. Might have to come back to that. That should have done that. Let me go in and do, go back in, coverage areas. I'll tell you what, I'll get rid of the flood zone. That might confuse it. Let's go back in here, just check I've done the right thing. Descriptive group. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And user data make. Whoa. People, we have a problem. When you come in late and then you rush it, don't you? Select all, rerun rules. Did I select it first or not? Can't remember. Right, still not doing it. Let's just check my properties. Natural environment. Natural buildings, yeah, general surface. They're all there. Right, okay. I will worry about that in a minute. I'll come back to that in a minute. What I did promise you was we're going to work with AutoCAD. So let's go straight to AutoCAD and do that while I have a think. So this is AutoCAD. All you that ticked, everybody who ticked AutoCAD, you could download this instead. And you can see it looks just like your AutoCAD. And that's because it's exactly that. It is AutoCAD. However, this has multiple workspaces, one of which is one called Map 3D. And if you know how to work with the CUI, you can create your own versions as well, which combines the two workspaces. Now, the Map 3D has a thing called the task pane. Now, the task pane can connect to data. So look at this. We can connect to ArcGIS, ArcGIS Online. We've got enterprise models. The ones that you'll come across the most is MySQL, ODBC, so that's Microsoft ODBC. That allows me to connect to spreadsheets and text files and things like that. Oracle, Postgres is, if you hear the term PostGIS, PostGIS is the bolt-on to the open source Postgres database. We can do rasters or raster image or surface. Note that they're categorized the same. And we can also do shape files and SDF files and WMSs and WFSs. Let's go and have a look at a couple of them. So the first thing is I want to bring in that surface. So I'm using AutoCAD to bring that surface in that I've just shown you in InfoWorks. So I'll just call this one 1 meter LiDAR and go and find that file. So it is in EA, Airbus, DTM, SX, 1 meter, 9192, did I say? I think I did, didn't I? Open, you connect to it, you add it to the map, and hey presto, you now have that data in your drawing. And you can do some really cool things with it as well, because we can style it up. So I can add a theme to it, for example. So I'll just click on theme, and I've got one here called the USGS National Map Palette, but you might want to be looking at aspect, so show me where all the south-facing areas are, that sort of thing. There's all sorts of ones you can do in there, so if I just apply that. And we can spin it into 3D with the 3D button there. And there we are. So now we've got all that data in 3D. Now let's have a look at the flood data, because we can bring that in as well, can't we? Now, if I was to try and bring the whole flood data in, you can drag and drop, but it will bring the whole lot in, all of England and Wales, and we'll be here for the next half hour just waiting for it to chunk. But what you can do is you can connect to the data shapefile, and this is what I'd highly recommend. So I'll call this one FZ3 shapefile, and I will go and find flood zone 3 again. There it is. Because one of the advantages of working with geospatial data is it's very easy to do queries. Because you've got data in the background, you can do spatial queries as well as attribute queries. So I'm going to connect to that data source, and I'm going to add it to the map. Instead of clicking add to map, I'm going to add to map with query. And it'll open this up. And we can say by location on a map, touching any part of a rectangle. So I can just draw myself a rectangle around my site, hit OK, and there is my flood zone. And we can style it up any way you like. What is quite nice, I quite like as well, if you wanted to do a presentation in 3D, it drapes all spatial features onto the surface. So you can create some quite good 3D representations and 3D models for your presentation. So that's quite nice. Now let's have a look at the mapping data. Now I know a lot of you ticked that you use your mapping data in DWG format. You don't need to. If you ticked, I'm an AutoCAD user, and you also ticked, I get my maps in DWG, and you also have a spatial database with a load of GIS data, don't use the DWG, use the spatial data files. So if I go in and find the OS master map here, just drag and drop it in. That's another option. There it is. I'll just turn that one off. And we can style that up however we want. You know, for example, if I just wanted it shown as no fill, because I've got a dark background, I'll put white boundary on. We could. Okay. Now imagine that was all DWG. You know, it's going to create a big asset in your drawing. This is just a connection to the data. So the data still sits on your server or your hard drive, and AutoCAD map is just viewing that data. If I save this drawing, even though the map data could be 10 meg, this drawing will probably only be about 2 or 3 meg, because it doesn't hold the data, it just shows a link to it. A little bit like an XREF, but less so. We can also theme in here, so if you wanted it nicely coloured up. Descriptive group. Oh, I'll better show you that, hadn't I? I promised I was going to show you that. If I open up the table, okay, let's just drag that across, make it wider and narrower. So this is the data that the OS provide with it. So you can see that you've got a descriptive group which describes what it is. You can select an object and it will zoom you to it in here, or you can select an object in the map and it will zoom you to it in the table. So I've just picked on a general surface, which is a multi-surface, and if we have a look, it's got a theme called land, etc. So it's got all the data, or make multiple, could be man-made or natural or whatever. We can use that data for querying, so say just give me the buildings, or we could use it for things like styling. So if I go into the style, let's add a theme to it, and we'll use that descriptive group, and we'll go in here and put a theme in. I better make that black again, haven't I? I'll just make it black to black. And then for here, you can go in and you can use style palettes. You may have to make some. It doesn't come with the box, this master map one. I can send you this if you need it, but it's a bit awkward, I have to be honest. They're not perfect, because if you have master map that doesn't have greenhouses in, then it'll skip one and you'll end up with yellow roads instead, that sort of thing. There we are. We can colour it up. We can do all sorts of clever stuff with that, and I could spend the next hour talking to you about this and doing lots. The point of this webinar is you need to leave here knowing, oh my God, I can do all of that with my AutoCAD. Brilliant. And then you can go and work that into your practices. Okay, let me just check. Okay. Now, next job is, what was I going to do? Flood data, show master map, done that. That's flood zone 3, yeah. Okay, cool, right. Let's look at Civil 3D because time has run away with us. So I want to also show Civil 3D. So let's open that up. So this is Civil 3D. So for you Civil 3D guys, it has got map built into it. There is one there called Planning and Analysis, and that is the map workspace. But you can stay in your Civil workspace and use the command map W space. And that's the word space, not the space bar. Map W space. We'll say, do you want to turn your task pane on? We'll say yes. And it'll turn your task pane on. Okay, just another palette, and you can have it auto hide or whatever you want to do. So it could just work in there. Now the other difference you can use is in here. If I was to go insert and import, you'll see I can import Google Map Info, Esri, and all that business. Whereas if you go to Civil 3D and go insert, import, it's very civilly AutoCAD-y. Doesn't have all of them. If I went to the map workspace, the import button would have them. But here's the next top tip. If you want the mapping version of the command, put the word map in front. So if I type map import, I will get the mapping version, shape files, Google files, map info files. And if I type import, I'll get the normal one. Similarly with the export. If I type export, I get your normal AutoCAD type export. But if I type map export, I'll get all the mappy type exports. So you can kind of shortcut certain things with working with geospatial files. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so in here, I want to show you WMSs as well. So let's go to our site. So far, what I've done is I've shown you how where you can find data and download it, where you can get free data from and download it. But there is also a thing called a web mapping service or a web feature service. That's WMS, WFS. Now they are links directly to the server of the person you're trying to connect to. So in this case, the Environment Agency. So in here, let's say I am going to work in here, and I would like to know what a 1 in 1,000 year flood event looks like. Okay, what is that going to look like on here? Because if I'm going to build on here, I'm going to drain into this road. Am I overloading it before I start? Well, we can use web mapping services. I'll just show you that guide. So this is this document you can download. And if I go back up here, you'll see there that I've put some useful WMS links. So there's your flood zone 3, where you can download it from. Flood zone 2, the survey LiDAR data, the LiDAR I showed you. And then here is the WMS links, okay? And all you do is you copy that. So you just copy that address there. You go into data, add data, and you go to add WMS, and you paste it in there. I didn't copy, I should have done. I've done it before there. You go paste into there, okay? And that's going to connect directly to the Environment Agency website. Connect. It will always ask you for a username and password. Ignore it. If you're not, unless you've been given one, ignore it. If this was connecting to ArcGIS, you're going to need it. But connecting to somewhere like that, they don't put a username and password, so just click log in. There it is. And there's the risk of flooding data set. And we can just add it to the map. This data set is set for the whole of England and Wales. So it doesn't matter where I go, that data is in there. But obviously it doesn't show when you zoom down. So if I go back to my site, as I zoom in, it will then start to show. There's my site. So I'll just give it a second while it goes back to the server, and there's the data. So this isn't just a snapshot, it's a live link. If I save this drawing, shut it down, and go and open it up next week, whatever data's on the server is what I'll be looking at. So it's a live link in there. Other one, maybe you want to know what the bedrock is. You know, maybe you want to go to the British Geological Survey and just have an idea. Before you go out and start drilling boreholes, just get yourself an idea. Maybe you want to go and have a look at that. Well, again, I've put the link in here. British Geological Survey, the map server there. You want to read about it, it's all there. There's all the information you need. And there is where you can get that link, which I've already put in. So I'll do data, connect to data. And I should have renamed it, shouldn't I? But I didn't. So I'll do another one. I'll call this one BGS. And I've done a connection. It remembers the last ones you did, you see. So you see them in the link. It makes life a lot easier. Connect, no password, just log in. And these are all of their data sets that they're producing. So I want to know what the bedrock is. I'll just click that. Add to map. Good way to stopping it zooming out is to click in the map. And there you go. So that's the bedrock. So the big question you have now is, oh my God, what does that colour mean? Well, you could go back to the website and find out, or you've also got this web feature information. If you select in here, risk of flooding or BGS, if I select BGS, you get a contextual tab called raster layer. If I go web feature information and click in there, it will tell me. So it's going over to the server, and it's whatever they've put on their server, that is the information in there. Carboniferous sedimentary bedrock. Wait, I have no idea. There'll be a geologist amongst you going, yeah, I know what that all means. And you can go, what's that yellow one? Click on there, click the yellow one, and then it'll tell you what the yellow one is. Okay. Similarly, if I change that to risk of flooding, so if I do this, this one's not so good. They haven't formatted this one well. So let's say I want to know what that darker blue colour is there. So I'll click on it. I'm on the wrong one. Click on it. I'm still on the wrong one. Web feature. Click on it. I'm on the right one now. There you go. They haven't formatted theirs very nicely. It's in HTML format, which is slightly annoying. I haven't found a way of changing that. All you can do is just copy it into a text file and save that text file as HTML. You'll see there, I've saved that in this folder here, and I've just called it map 0.1 flood area HTML, and it tells me, look, greater than 1. But now I know, greater than 1.2, now I know it's that. I can actually decipher that from within here, because you just find that in there. It'll tell us somewhere. There it is. So that one there says greater than 1.2. So let's go and pick the light blue area. And that one there is 0.15 to 0.3 meters deep. Okay. So it's a really, really useful way of getting that information. Now, even though we started 10 minutes late, I've still run out of time. So I haven't had time to go and fix that, which has slightly wound me up. Really annoying. What I will do is I'll show you the building heights. So I'll just turn the aerial imagery back on. Okay. Because in here I have created a data set with the building height. So MasterMap comes with building heights. They've covered about 90% of the UK at the moment. So most places you go to, you get building heights. Sounds an easy question to answer. How high is that building? Well, it's not. Just go and have a look at the buildings around you and tell me where the top of the building is. Are we looking at the top of the aerial, the top of the chimney, which chimney stack, the top of the pitch? What if it's not got a pitch and it's got some bits on it, you know, like air conditioning units? Does it include them? Some buildings have got multiple roof slopes on them and multiple heights. It's quite difficult. But again, the data's there, the information's there. So let's put in buildings with building heights. If you need to know how to add the building heights, I've done a webinar on that, and it's on the on-demand page. So go in here, they are buildings. Instead of putting a 10-meter building height on it, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to use that data table that we had in that you saw in AutoCAD Map 3D, and I've got one there called Relative H2. Basically, they've got maximum height and relative height, and they've got so maximum height is from 0, so it might be 30 meters above sea level, and relative height is from the base of the building, so it might be 10 meters. Then you've got H2, which is basically the eaves height, the average eaves height, as opposed to max, which will be the top. Geolocation, so it's on the British National Grid. I'm going to drape them on the surface. Come on, drape and clip. So these will all come in at the correct height now. There we are. All these buildings have the correct height. So if I look at that one, it's 15.2. That one is 30. That one there is 9.4. Okay, so you can utilize the geospatial data to do clever things, really. Okay, I will shut up now because I've taken up enough of your time. So it's time for any questions. So I'll just see if anybody's asked any. Let's have a look. Oh, we've got a couple of questions. Apart from the pigeon being stuck in the fireplace. So Kieran, yeah, it is. In terms of viewing the land data in Map 3D as opposed to Civil 3D, you can actually view it that way in Civil 3D, but you can't do anything with it. You know, you can put contours on it, but they're spatial contours. You can't design on it. So it's good for presentation work and for quickly getting a surface and understanding it. It's really good for that, but it's not good for designing on. Okay. That should be going to a question. It is now. There we are. If anybody recognises this building, you must put it in the questions box. It's in the shape of a question mark. Okay. Nigel, WMS load failure. What do you mean? And Civil 3D. What do you mean? There's a question there. What isn't working? It's worked on mine. You mean it isn't working on yours? Oh, might be your install. Well, WMSs can be awkward because you're relying on lots of things. So if you're working in an office, you've got your software which links to it. So that's one element. Your software has to be correct. To be honest, I've never seen it fail. No, I've seen it fail. I've never seen your software fail. Secondly, you're relying on your IT infrastructure. So it's going to have to go down your pipe. Then it's going to go to the server, the ISP, and then it goes to the vendor. So that might be, say, the Environment Agency. All of them things have to work. So it's very easy for them to stop working. The most common reason for them not to work, if you're working in a larger organization, is your IT infrastructure is blocking it with something like a firewall. Oh, you've just written firewall. I see that, yeah. So that would be the most common reason. It could be that it's your firewall. Again, you can get hold of us in support if you've got a support contract, and we will be able to get your IT people to allow that through the network. So it's always fixable, these things. The IT bods, although they always seem like they're saying to you, just turn it off and back on again, or reinstall because they don't understand Civil 3D. Your GIS team know it all, and they'll be able to know it all as if they do. Nobody knows everything, but they're usually pretty good at getting these things working. So if you need help on it, certainly get hold of us. Nobody guessed the building yet, by the way? Oh, it's easy peasy, that one. No other questions? Right, I will close it off. That's the BBC Centre. BBC. You've seen it all in the middle bit there when they've done the filming. Looks a bit like a question mark, which is why I put that in there. Okay, thanks ever so much for your questions. Remember, if you have support, please get hold of us. You know, whether it's a how-to or a broken something, or get training or whatever, by all means. But use us, that's what we're here for. And I will leave it at that. Thanks very much. I'll leave up the webinar so you can just jot the date down of the next one, which is on Monday, actually. So I'll leave that up just for a couple of minutes. And thanks again. Have a good weekend and see some of you next week, hopefully. Thank you.